A major debate in the area of code mixing and code switching centers around whether or not code mixing is rule governed. Scholars are divided on this issue. Some scholars and researchers believe that code mixing is random and is not governed by any rules. On the other hand, we have researchers and scholars who believe that code mixing is governed by clear grammatical rules. Two of the most studied rules for code mixing are free morpheme constraint and equivalence constraint. A morpheme is the smallest meaningful unit of a word. For example, a morpheme like S, which is an extremely small linguistic element, is a morpheme. The S that we use for pluralizing nouns, this S is a complete morpheme in itself. Morphemes in English are divided into two types: free morphemes and bound morphemes. Free morpheme is a morpheme that can stand alone as a word. It is also called an unbound morpheme or a freestanding morpheme. Let's take a look at some examples. A word like R is a free standing morpheme because it can stand on its own as a word. So R is a completely meaningful word, therefore it's a free morpheme. It is as meaningful as any other word. Similarly, the word this is a freestanding morpheme because it is also completely meaningful. Eat, let, want, all these are examples of freestanding morphemes because they are complete in meanings and cannot be broken any further. A bound morpheme, on the other hand, is a morpheme that cannot stand alone as a word. All prefixes and suffixes that we have in English fall under bound morphemes. You can attach a bound morpheme with a free morpheme to create a new word or a new word form. For example, the morpheme re, the prefix re can be attached with the word or free morpheme start to create the word restart. Similarly, the morpheme re or the prefix re can be attached to the freestanding morpheme join to create a new word, rejoin. Similarly, dis can be attached to content to create discontent. So the rule that we have for code mixing is that an intrasentential, which means within a sentence, switch can be made by any bilingual speaker only if a constituent is not a bound morpheme, which means this switch can be made only when the constituent is a free morpheme. You cannot make a switch on a bound morpheme. Let's take a look at this example. इधर हम shop में जाते हैं तो the word shop is a free morpheme. If it were not a free morpheme, we couldn't use it in this intrasentential switch. Similarly, दिलो दिमाग नेचर की खामोश दिल आवेजियों से हल्के हल्के लुत्फानंदोज होंगे. The word nature is a free morpheme. It is completely meaningful on its own as a word. It does not need to be attached to some other morpheme to become meaningful, and therefore we can use it in the middle of a sentence when we are code switching. However, we have counterexamples. The rule says that we cannot switch in the middle of a sentence from one language to the other when the morpheme is bound. But we have examples from Pakistani context and also from other contexts where speakers make this switch even within a sentence. So these examples have been taken from some Pakistani writing. हमारे बॉल रूमों और क्लबों का क्या होगा? Now, is a morpheme which is used in Urdu for pluralizing. For example, किताबों, लड़कियों, खिड़कियों, etc. So this bound morpheme is used with an English free morpheme. So Urdu bound morpheme is used with an English free morpheme to create a new form of the word. According to this free morpheme constraint, you cannot do that. You can do code switching only on words or only on points where you are using a free morpheme. However, we see here speakers making switches when they are using bound morphemes. Similarly, the second example, बॉक्सों की ज्यादती बता रही है कि सफ़र की आदत नहीं. Now, box is a free morpheme in English, and again, it is attached to a bound morpheme in Urdu. So, switch is being made when a bound morpheme is being used in Urdu. Similarly, from the Singaporean context, we have this example, cunning. Kun is a word from a language, from one of the dialects which is used in Singapore. And ing again is an English bound morpheme. And the word kun is a free morpheme in one of the dialects used in Singapore, is attached with ing, which is a bound morpheme in English, to create a new form, cunning, which means sleeping. Kun in Singaporean means sleep. So we see that this constraint, free morpheme constraint, is not fully practiced when it comes to code mixing within sentences, intrasentential code mixing, and code mixing is done between free morphemes and bound morphemes in different languages of the world.